From the time you were young, you may have been asked a version of this question. What do you want to be when you grow up? What kind of job are you interested in? What do you think you want to major in college? All of those questions used to help people figure out what they wanted to study. They would get into a career, and then often they would stay in that career for the rest of their lives until they retired. That's not how the world of work works anymore. And it's not the question we need to ask each other anymore. And especially not the question that grown-ups should be asking younger people. What do you want to be when you grow up? Doesn't really make sense with the way that the world and jobs work today. So Jamie Kasip, who is the education evangelist for Google Suites, has a new question that he thinks is the question we need to ask everyone. So let's listen, and we're practicing our learner profile trait of being open minded as we think about a new way of thinking about finding our path and our career path and our life path.
So a lot of you out there have been asked, especially if you're just recent grads or whether you are like switching careers or whatever, wherever you are, you've been asked your whole life, what do you want to be when you grow up? And that question used to make sense back in the olden days, a long time ago when jobs didn't change that much, when things were much more stable. Well, today we know that that's not true. Jobs are shifting. Jobs are shifting right now, right in front of us. And so what we need to think about is a new question. And the question I want everyone to think about is, what problem do you want to solve? What's the problem that spins in your head? And it doesn't have to be a social problem. It could be any kind of problem. It could be if you watch Shark Tank, everyone who walks into that tank is solving a problem. So what's the problem that you want to solve? And then the second question that you should be thinking about is, how do you want to solve it? How do you want to take your experiences, your gifts, your talents, and solve that problem? And so it's important to think about how you take on that problem, because there's a million ways to solve a problem, and your passions and your guidance and the way you want to solve a problem matters, right? Because if you wanted to solve climate change, for example, people might think that you need to be a scientist or a researcher, but in reality, you might be a brilliant photographer. And the way you can solve climate change is by going out and documenting climate change, right? And then the last question I want you to think about is, what do you need to know to solve that problem? What are the skills, the abilities, the knowledge you need to have to solve that problem? And where can you start developing those knowledge, skills, and abilities? And the reason why this is important is because it opens up the world not to think about jobs, but think about experiences and skills you can build. Because if you wanted to solve climate change through photography and you realized that you needed to be a writer to do that because you wanted to write blogs about it, then you probably should find work that helps you develop your writing skills. And it doesn't matter what industry it is, because you are going to be developing those skills. And so for me, when I got to understand it this way, when I graduated from graduate school at Arizona State University, there was no Google. So I couldn't plan to work at Google when I graduated from graduate school, right? So if you think about that, what company, what areas are going to exist in 15 years or 20 years they don't exist today? So it's more important to build the skills, the knowledge, the abilities that you.
All right. So we're thinking skills, ability, knowledge. How can I put those together with my passions to solve a problem? That is the way forward. And it's a really different way of thinking about it. For some of you, you think about that and immediately feel a sense of comfort. Oh, I know the problem. I know the problem that I'm already passionate about. I'm already doing things to address it. Some of you might feel like, a problem? I mean, yeah, I care about climate change, but I don't know if that's my passion. I wonder what the problem is. And others of you might feel like, I don't want to think about problems. There's enough problems in the world. I just want to pick a job and have a stable career. And you might feel all of these on different days. They're all valid ways to think about this question, but it's still the question we need to think about. So, as you are open minded and you connect the learning you're doing in all 8 of your IB subject areas to the world, see where you can see connections between what you're learning in one class and what you're learning in another class. See if you can take the things you're learning in those classes and connect them to a story you hear about in the news, or to a problem in your neighborhood, or to something that your younger sibling is talking about. We're looking for connections and ways we can use our learning authentically. So, for our talking piece and our circle today, remember that we always pass the talking piece to the left, and that we are going to see if we can get through 5 passes with everybody sharing on these passes if possible. I'll walk you through the prompts really quickly. And then these advisors, these are also in the slideshow. So you don't have to pause this. You can just flip to the next slide and you'll see these prompts. So we're thinking about first what we're interested in, and then how we might connect those to a problem in the world. So first pass is one activity you look forward to, and besides sleeping, because that's one we all look forward to, but it's hard to solve problems by sleeping. You need to sleep to solve a problem, but then what do you want to do when you're awake? Second pass, something that you've heard about or seen but never been able to try, either because of time or money or geography. Have you wanted to travel somewhere? Have you wanted to skydive? What's a thing that sounds really interesting or fun to you, but you haven't yet tried? Third one, what's the one thing that makes you feel hopeless? It's either big or overwhelming. You just can't see how it could change. And the next one, and this is an important pass, one thing or person that makes you feel hopeful. What is it about this thing that makes you feel hopeful? And then in the last pass, as you think about the questions and listen to each other, have you heard anything that might be fun, interesting, or important to learn more about? What is the thing that you're starting to think, oh, that might be a thing that I'm interested in pursuing? And we'll keep building to identify those problems, and think about how what we're learning starts to connect to the world. So enjoy your conversations in circle this morning, and I look forward to learning from you all.